So tell me about being a congressman for 20 years, especially an Irish kid from Woodside and Power. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
incredible in the overall scheme of things. But I assume you were in a lot of important legislation over the years. If you had to give us a few
Oh
highlights
gosh.
about, bills or laws you got passed or things you were involved in, just give us like your greatest memories, if you will.
I get that, Steve. I get asked that question so many times, but to have, played a part in history in many respects, that in a front row seat, it's difficult. It's a hard question to answer, and people, how is that hard to answer? Can't you remember? I had so many events that were life changing
Right.
to me. But I served for 20 years. I first started out on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and later served on the House Ways and Means Committee for 12 years. And I was successful in running for House leadership. I first was the vice chair of the Democratic Caucus, and in my final term, I was the chair of the Democratic Caucus, which was at the time the fourth highest position in the Democratic Caucus leadership. Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn, then myself.
Wow.
I would say, my first introduction in terms of foreign affairs really happened in the state legislature. My mom, having been born in Northern Ireland in County Armagh, I had a real affinity or attraction to what was happening in Ireland at the time. That was, well before the peace process. The troubles were still ongoing in the north, and so I was very much involved in those issues as an Irish American in a position to have an opinion that maybe others would care about. Passed legislation, worked on the McBride principles in the state assembly to force the British and both sides to the table to allow for more opportunities for work for Catholics, primarily in the north of Ireland. And then I passed a controversial piece of legislation which required the teaching of the Great Famine of the Hunger in New York State's curriculum, both public and private schools. And to this day, a question is asked every year in the History Regents exam on the effects of the famine on New York State and what it did. But that was controversial. That was prior to the days of the internet. So the only death threats I got were via the mail from folks in England and Northern Ireland. But I do believe that was during the time of the 150th anniversary of the commemoration of the hunger. And not too long after that, Tony Blair came just short of apologizing for what the British had done to the Irish during that time. And I do think it had an effect on the process, because you cannot have peace and move forward until certain things are acknowledged about the past. And so I do think that had an effect on that overall in terms of movement. I later was, when I was in the House of Representatives, on a trip to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and to England, to Great Britain. I had the opportunity to go to 10 Downing Street when Blair was about to leave office. And we sat in the treaty room, myself and Richie Neal and a few other members from the Friends of Ireland Committee. And sitting across from Tony Blair, I was one of the more junior members, just have a couple of questions. The chair and the vice chair would speak. And I just couldn't help myself. Richie said, "Would you mind if I just ask one quick question?" He goes, "Yeah, sure, Joe, go ahead." I said, "Mr. Prime Minister, I want you to know, when history is written about you, and there will be history written about you, you are going to go down as the greatest English Prime Minister the Irish people ever had." I paused, and everyone was kind of taken aback. And he said, "Well, Joe, I'm part Irish. My mother's people are from Donegal. And in this very room, at this very table, is where Winston Churchill, my predecessor, negotiated the peace treaty of 1921 with Michael Collins." And I was just blown away. I said, this can't be happening, but it was. It was true. It was real. And so that was certainly, that my involvement in the peace process in the north of Ireland was something what was very near and dear to me, and continued to work on throughout my career. I think legislatively,